Hey, my name is Deborah Winters. Welcome to my YouTube channel, a place where you will hear conversations with ordinary people telling their extraordinary stories. Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel, Their Stories. We hope you tuned in last week for the first part of Jovan's story, Jovan Jimenez. Amazing story. So Jovan is on staff here at Family Worship Center and involved with young adults. We didn't say that last time, but he's over young adults. Yes. So anyway, pick up where we left off about
where we
pastors,
left off.
Coming together.
So at the church that I was attending, all the pastors of the church there was a sermon series. I want to say it was called Dirty Little Secrets or something along the lines of that. But they all shared their testimonies. And I remember,
were you
during
required
this time,
to, did they ask you to share your testimony?
No, I wasn't a pastor at this church.
Oh, okay,
So the reason I'm bringing up the story is because it brings another pivotal moment in my walk with the Lord.
Okay.
And so during this time, as I mentioned, I'm still struggling with the temptations and the thoughts and still trying to follow the Lord but just questioning, why can't I get rid of this? Why can't I move forward in my walk with the Lord? And so during this sermon series, I remember the worship pastors at the time, it was a husband and wife. They shared their story, and when the husband spoke, his testimony was almost equivalent to my testimony.
No way.
And he shared to the church that the moment that he truly felt free from, anything that he was struggling with in that field, was when he shared his story with his wife, who at the time was just a friend. And I was like, that's it. I have never shared my testimony with anyone. I've always kept it inside.
So that brings light to it. And and light will dispel
Absolutely.
darkness.
And the word says, confess your sins to one another. And pray for one another so that you might be healed.
But you had not been comfortable sharing this story because of the rejection that's associated with that, right?
Yeah, so during their message, this was another opportunity where I made it to the front before they could even make an altar call. And I was just to obviously ask for prayer, but then also ask how do you go about sharing your story with someone when you're afraid to maybe lose a friend, or your parents view you differently, or whatever the case is.
And you were asking?
I wanted to ask him. I didn't end up asking anything. I just let them pray for me, and I talked to the Lord.
Okay.
And I just asked the Lord, who should I share my story with? Because I do want to confess this to someone so that I can be healed and let go of this baggage that I've been carrying around.
Bring it out into the light. Okay.
And so the first person that came to mind was my best friend at the time. And I remember...
Male or female?
Male.
Okay.
I remember going back to where we were sitting, because him and I were sitting together in the service, and the service wasn't even over, and I was like, I need to tell you something right now. And he was like, right now? I was like, right now. And I was in tears because I was just so emotional.
He had no idea.
And he had no idea what was going on. And I was afraid to tell him, because in previous years in our friendship, there were rumors spread in our church that we were more than friends.
Really?
Because we
Back
hung
in the
out
Hispanic
all the time.
Church?
This was the Assemblies of God church.
The
now,
new
the bilingual,
church.
the new church.
Oh, there was rumors.
But actually, you're right. They were from the Hispanic church, because we both transitioned to this church around the same time.
Okay.
So just from our old church world and that group of friends, there were a lot of things being said about us. Just because I hung out at his house all the time, he would come to my house all the time. We were together all the time. It's like, when you're young and you have a best friend, that's what you do. You hang out with your best friend all the time.
Yes.
And so there was never anything beyond a friendship between us. And so I was afraid. I was like, well, is me telling him this now going to make him think now this is the reason why people thought that about us? Yes. And so I just was at the point, I was like, I don't care. This is who the Lord told me to tell, and I need to tell somebody. And so we go outside, we're in front of the church, and I'm just sharing this with him in a short, condensed version. And I was like, I need to share this with someone so that I can be freed from it and truly delivered from it. And just laid it out. And I was like, this is my past and this is my testimony. And I hope you don't see me any differently for me sharing this with you. But if you do, I completely understand. I know not everybody can accept or agree or understand with a testimony like this. And so it is what it is. I just need to tell you so that I can let go of it.
Yes. That's so good.
And his words to me were, thank you for sharing that with me. It takes a lot of courage for someone to share that, and I see you even more as a man for sharing that with me. And that
affirmation, validation. That's so
and
good.
affirmation is what I received in that moment, not only from him, but from the Lord, because as I shared my story with him, I just felt this huge weight being lifted off my shoulders, and I kind of felt in that moment like, now I can breathe, and now I can truly allow the Lord to work in my life and move forward in my walk with the Lord. And so that's what I did. I encountered a school of ministry at another youth convention that I went to with this new youth group as a leader. And this pastor and his ministry were preaching one night, and I was like, wow, that's where I need to be, because the message was just so powerful, and they kind of advertised the school of ministry in the way of like, if you just want to grow in the Lord and grow in your calling and understand what you're called to do, come to this school of ministry. And I was like, well, that's the season that I'm in. Like, I want to grow in the Lord. I want to know what the Lord wants me to do with my life, and mostly just for the growing in the Lord part. Like, I want to develop my relationship with Jesus even deeper. And so a year later, I decided to go to the school of ministry. And now this is like, we're talking about years are passing. So now I'm 24.
3 years.
I'm in the school of ministry, and it's a 3-year program. And so it was very interesting. It's called Ignite School of Ministry. If you want to look it up, it still exists today. Ignite School of Ministry.
In Florida?
It's in Gainesville, Florida.
Okay.
And it's based out of a church called Ignite Life Center, pastored by Mark Vega. Just an amazing ministry, and God really changed me a lot there. And so I went there, 3-year ministry. And the way that it works is the first year is all about your heart and just falling in love with Jesus all over again. Even if you already fell in love with Jesus, you take that first year to fall in love with him all over again. And so there's classes that are geared towards that. You learn about the life of Jesus, the life of David.
Now, do you live on campus?
Yep. It's
so
a small
campus.
It's a small community. It's not like in a Southeastern or anything like that. It's a small community. My incoming class was 14 students. But outgoing, only 5 of us out of those 14 graduated and made it to the whole 3 years. But it was just a powerful ministry, and I know God really used that ministry to transform me into the man that I am today. And so first year is about the heart, second year is about the mind. So now you're doing more knowledge about the Bible, really getting the Bible into you, and learning about the word, and just like learning the gospel, John, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, learning all just knowledge, information. And then the third year is based on hands, and so that's now you fell in love with Jesus, you've learned about the word, now how can you apply that and apply that in your ministry, or go out and disciple. And so I did the 3 years, graduated. I like to boast a little bit because I did graduate valedictorian of my class out of 5 students.
See, well, it just takes one, right?
And so the Lord really transformed me. I surrounded myself with a lot of men, my pastor, the directors and leaders of the school of ministry, and even my classmates, because I knew that there were still tendencies that I had. People viewed me as feminine.
They did.
And I didn't want to be viewed as that, because I didn't want to have to live my life
in that
feeling like everybody connected me to being gay just because how I walked or how I talked.
Did you feel compelled to tell people in ministry or about the past?
So now in the school of ministry, we all in our first year had an opportunity to share our stories with each other, and now at this point I felt comfortable because I wasn't carrying around this baggage, and I wasn't carrying around this struggle. Like, I no longer had struggled with that anymore.
So it didn't come and torment you?
It didn't come and torment me.
I mean, so after you told your best friend, it was gone.
It was gone.
Is that
Deborah,
amazing?
I tell you, it was gone. So I know some people
so good
who have struggles feel like they're going to struggle with that struggle forever, or like, I even heard a leader, I don't remember who, but I heard a leader once say, like, whatever you struggle with, you'll always have the same struggle. And I can stand here today and say that I don't struggle with homosexuality. I don't struggle with the thoughts. I don't struggle with the feelings.
Yes, it's freedom.
I'm not saying that as a Christian I don't struggle at all. Just that's not my struggle.
Yeah, I mean, because we do have struggles. I mean, you know, always your thought life.
Yep.
Just any number of things.
And so in the
woo.
school of ministry, I surrounded myself with men because I wanted to know, like, what can I do to be seen as more manly or change my ways or my mannerisms and all of those things. So
Self-reflection, and we all need to do that.
Yes.
I don't care what walk of life you're in.
I did a lot of self-reflection, and I was just like, I don't want to have to live my life like this. I don't want people to think that just because they don't know me, but because of how I behave, they associate me with being gay or anything like that. And so
Did that bother you?
It did, especially after I was delivered from it and healed from that. I just was like, why am I viewed like this? Why am I feminine? You know, is it because I was always with my mom and my grandma growing up and just surrounded with females? Is it because I was more comfortable being with girls in school and all those things?
People need to hear this.
And so I just was like, you know, I don't have to live like this. And I know when I was working at Southeastern, that was something that frustrated me, because I would see a lot of guys on campus that were very flamboyant and very feminine, and I know what God did in my life as far as my mannerisms and how I carried myself. But the generation that is growing up today and becoming young adults today ties that to personality. And I'm like,
and they lean into it.
And they lean, it's like, oh, that's just their personality. Like, there's nothing wrong with them. No, that is not a personality type.
Right.
Like, how you behave might be, but how you act as far as your mannerisms and, you know, things that you do when you talk, when you walk, that is not personality.
Right.
That is just how you act and how you kind of walk and talk, and those things that you make. And so I know that God changed me, and God can do that in everybody.
Right.
He can change you. You don't have to be sitting there saying, well, I'm flamboyant because that's my personality.
Yes.
No, your personality might be extroverted and outgoing,
and that's good,
but not walking with a twist. That's not a personality. Shaking your head or moving your head like this when you talk, or flicking your wrist, you know, if you're a guy.
He knows his stuff.
That is not a personality
that is
characteristic.
So good.
And
so good.
I actually got to teach a class a couple weeks ago at Southeastern, and it was based on sexuality. And I had, in both sessions that I taught, I had to correct the student because they brought that up, and I was like, no, that is not a personality.
So were they
characteristic?
Their wrist?
No, they just, it was students that were, since we were on the topic of homosexuality, they just happened to talk about how, oh yeah, you know, you might see a guy that's a little flamboyant or feminine, but that doesn't mean that they're gay. That's just their personality. And I was like, can I say something? No, that is not a personality. You were teaching the class.
Yeah. Can I say something?
I was teaching with the actual professor of the class, so I want to make sure I could interject.
Okay.
So I like to, you know, share that part of my testimony. Like, yes, God delivered me from this, but He also delivered me from my mannerisms, so that I wasn't tied to that.
Thank God for that. Yes.
And so,
I'm sorry, I got you off track. So you were gravitating to men.
So I surrounded myself with men. I put myself in an uncomfortable position. I would wake up with my classmates to go play basketball at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I didn't like sports. So I put myself in the thing that I was uncomfortable, so that I could learn, like, you know, what are they doing? Like, and it might seem a little shallow or surface level, but I wanted the outside to change as well as the inside.
Yes, that's so good.
So I found the two classmates, the two males that made it all 3 years with me, that I was really close to. They're still good friends of mine today. We all live in different states now.
Okay.
But we still keep in touch with each other. I allowed them to hold me accountable, and I think that's an issue today. People do not like accountability.
Right.
And when they do, it's like, you know, choose somebody that's gonna hold you accountable, not that's gonna fall into temptation along with you. You know, you have to choose the right person that will hold you accountable. And so I chose them, and I was like, we had a serious conversation with one another. We're like, you guys are my accountability partners. You're the only guys in the program now. I want you to hold me accountable. If you see me doing something that might be feminine, call me out.
And this was in the ministry school in Gainesville?
In the school of ministry,
okay.
In Gainesville. So this was still during the 3 years that I was there as a student.
Out. You just gave them liberty.
I gave them liberty.
And did they?
And they did. They're like, okay, you're flicking your hand too much right now.
Are you serious?
Yes. They would call me out.
So you would flick your hand?
Like, I would talk a lot with my hands, but maybe like I'd hold it like this or like this and stuff like that. Or I would like move my head like this when I was talking to somebody, like just mannerisms of a female.
Yes.
And so
I never thought about women doing that.
Well, especially from like the black community. Like,
okay.
So I gave them the liberty to do that. And as far as my leaders and mentors, just asked them, like, what does it mean to be a man of God? Like, what does it mean to be a man? Just teach me those things. And like, I want to know how to be a husband to my wife. I want to know how to be a father to my child when those days come. And you know, there was just a lot of training and molding and building up.
Was it easy or was it hard?
It was hard, Deborah. It was hard. Down to what? Down to even how I dressed. My pastor was like, you know what? Maybe you shouldn't wear these shoes. Maybe because they're deemed as unisex. So these shoes that you're wearing, a girl might be wearing these shoes as well. So I even started changing how I dressed for that season because I didn't want to, like, pants too tight, things like that.
Got it.
Skinny jeans. So I strayed away from skinny jeans for a season. I strayed away from tight clothing for a season. Things that I was a part of my sense of fashion, I kind of changed, and so that I wouldn't be, because those are also things like there's so many stereotypes. People will stereotype you because of how you dress.
Yes.
People will stereotype you because of how you walk.
This is
how
so
you
good.
Talk.
Yes.
I was like, for this season of my life, I want people to stereotype me as just a man. Like, a man.
Oh, and a husband?
And a husband.
And a daddy.
Well, I wasn't married or a father yet.
Okay.
I was 100% single still. So now, in my third year of the School of Ministry, also, I think an important thing to note is that during the first 2 years of the program, us as students, we were not allowed to date.
Oh.
So that we could focus on our relationship with God.
Yes.
And so that even meant we couldn't like text or call on the phone the opposite sex.
Okay.
Unless it was like our classmates amongst the school, but even then that was monitored. And so in my third year, that rule is lifted off of you.
Okay.
You're able to date if you want to. You're able to, flirt and talk to girls and things like that.
Were you attracted to girls at that time?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, I was.
So back to...
I've always had an attraction to girls.
Thank you. Okay.
Yes.
I forgot to ask
I've always
that
had an attraction to girls.
Good.
There was just a sense of like, girls aren't attracted to me.
Yes. So it was just easier to gravitate to the males who...
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. And so...
The last year, in
my third year, I realized that I don't go out anywhere to meet anybody. And the girls that are in the School of Ministry with me are either on that covenant where they can't date, or I've been in the program so long with them, I see them as like a sister. Yeah. And so I just wasn't into anybody at the church like that. And again, my life revolved around the church at this point. So remember, I started the program at 24. I was a little older than your typical ministry school student. And so in my third year, I'm 26 going on 27, one of the older ones still. But I was so involved in church. I worked for the pastor and I worked for the church. I was the office administrator.
You were just immersed
the
in
pastor's
the whole thing.
assistant. I was involved in like worship and youth. I was... As a third-year student, I was also considered a leader in the program. And so I would always go on ministry. Our school took a lot of ministry trips, and we'd go minister in different states and travel with the pastor. So I was like, I'm not meeting anybody in Gainesville outside of the church. So I was like, I'm going to try online dating.
Oh, so wow. Okay.
I tried online dating. I put a little ad in here, eharmony.com is where I found my wife.
Oh, are you serious?
Yeah. So I tried online dating.
I had no idea.
Did that for a little bit, had a few conversations here and there, but then I was matched with my wife.
I'm just trying to process that.
So people always ask, and anybody who's watching might be wondering this, especially in the Christian community, people are always like, why not Christian Mingle or something like that? And now there's new ones that I'm hearing about that are more faith-based dating sites. And I just went with eHarmony because I did the research on some different sites, and I liked eHarmony because, one, it was created by psychologists.
Okay.
So the assessment process of it is very in-depth as far as mentality, personality, religion, spirituality.
Okay.
It encompasses everything.
You did your homework.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then another thing I liked about it is that a lot of online dating applications, you can sign up for a profile and you could just, it's like going grocery shopping. You can put in, I want somebody who's female between this age and they don't smoke and they don't drink and they live 20-mile radius of where I live, and then it shows you every profile that matches that. eHarmony doesn't do that. eHarmony will send you matches based on your assessment and how, because it's created by psychologists, how compatible from your assessments you two might be based on the stats and the statistics. So when I was matched with my wife, it was like, you are 97% compatible with this person.
So did they send you a lot of people?
They would always send you matches every maybe once a week. I think you could
Okay.
change the setting on how often you wanted to receive matches, but
Okay.
mine was like on a weekly basis because obviously I was out of state a lot traveling.
Yeah.
And so every week I'd get an email, these are your matches of the week. And so
Wow.
I remember getting matched with my wife, and that was the highest compatibility percentage that I had.
97%.
Everybody else was like 70s and 60s, and so with her, I clicked on her profile and I was like, wow, this girl, she's beautiful. What is she doing on online dating? And I loved what her bio said about, her, and like there's always these basic questions that you can read before you get to start a conversation. And so I just enjoyed everything I read. It was like, God was important in her life, family was important to her, all these different things. Like there was one thing that has not even spiritual related, but it was like, what is one of your favorite things? And she wrote like long walks on the beach at nighttime, because it's just the ocean is just so vast. And like I was like, she's smart, because who uses the word vast? Intelligent woman, beautiful intelligent woman. And so I sent her a message.
Check.
I sent her a message, and it was just like 5 questions,
Vast.
like multiple choice questions, and then she responded, and our first conversation was like hours long. We talked to about 3 in the morning, just
So
messaging
it wasn't
each other
a
back and
verbal,
forth.
it was just
It was
electronic.
just electronic.
Device. Yes.
And we talked electronically. We transitioned from eHarmony to Instagram direct message, and we only talked electronically for a month.
Really?
An entire month. I wasn't communicating with anybody else from eHarmony or any other conversations I've ever had. I don't know if I could say the same for her, but she was the only person that I was talking to for a month, and then just decided, let's meet up. Let's go on a date. And so we met up. She was actually living in West Palm Beach, and I was living in Gainesville, so we were long distance.
So West Palm Beach, South Florida, Gainesville, North Florida.
5-hour drive.
Yeah.
And so in conversation, we realized that both of our families live in the Orlando area. And so we met up at Disney Springs. Back then, it was still known as Downtown Disney.
Downtown, Lake Buena Vista,
Yeah.
which is before Downtown Disney.
And I guess the rest is history. So in the sense of being in a relationship, but now going back to kind of moving to Lakeland, she moved to Gainesville eventually. We weren't even engaged, but we were so sure that we were going to be the one. Like,
How long did you date? At this point in time,
we dated for 6 months,
and then
before I proposed.
You proposed after 6 months?
I proposed after 6 months. And so she moved to Gainesville December of 2017. And the day after she moved, I proposed.
Wow. Now,
so she had a big weekend. It was like new house, new city, new job, proposal, new church for the first time. She was so overwhelmed that weekend.
You guys met for the first time in Orlando, but so from that time till she moved,
we had a lot of we would at least spend 2 weekends together.
Okay.
So we would rotate, like you come spend a weekend in Gainesville, I'll go spend a weekend in West Palm Beach.
Okay.
So we spent a lot of time together, physically in person.
Got it.
And so, and then she moved, and we were together all the time in Gainesville. So now I'm a leader. I'm no longer a student, graduated the program, a leader in the church, still working at the church. And we got married, and we just both felt like God was transitioning us. It was a season of transition, and I didn't know what that what that meant at first. I took it as maybe the Lord wants me to transition into the regular workforce because now I'm married. I need to provide for a family.
Yeah, stability.
I'm not making a lot in ministry to be able to do that. And so I transitioned to what we call a secular job. And I was working as an assistant manager for a trampoline park, and still felt like, I don't think this is the transition that God's talking about. Maybe he means this city entirely. And so we prayed about it and then transitioned to Lakeland. And we've been in Lakeland since summer of 2019.
2019.
Yep.
Wow.
And so that is...
And then you guys decided to go to school.
We decided to do our master's. So part of moving to Lakeland was also to do our master's. So we started our master's that fall of 2019. And we both just finished in the summer of last year. With our,
you both graduated last year.
So I have my master's in marriage and family therapy, and she has her master's in professional counseling. So more the mental health side.
Wow. So you both are in the same field, basically.
Yes, same field. Mine's is more ministry based. I mean, she's still doing ministry, but she's doing it through nonprofit Peace River Center, for those of you who are familiar.
Okay.
And so it's been a blessing. We get to talk a lot about, hey, I'm struggling with this with somebody that I'm seeing. What do you think about it? And so it's good being married to another counselor. And people ask us all the time, how's that? You guys must not have any issues.
Are you analyzing each other all the time?
So I think being counselors, we both have a sense of like, okay, we know how to have a healthy argument. We know how to resolve conflicts.
That's amazing.
I mean, we still have the same marital issues that people have, especially when you have a child involved now. Like, our marriage isn't perfect, but for me, it's perfect. I love my wife. I love my son. I'm so glad that God, sent her to me, or sent us to each other, or whatever you want to call it. And I know she's the one that the Lord specifically designed for me, because she is my opposite in so many good ways, though. We complement each other so well.
Isn't that wonderful?
And I like to promote that, and like, you always hear, oh, I want someone who completes me. Like, no, absolutely not. Jesus is the only person that can complete you.
Yes.
And once you are complete in Jesus, then you look for somebody who complements that. Not completes
that good?
So
wow.
We complement each other so well, and it's been great. Marriage has been great. Parenthood has been amazing. And I'm so thankful for where God has brought me and where he's placed me. And
I was telling a friend the other day, when you know that you are in God's plan and his will, there's a sense of, and I use the word satisfaction, it's probably not good, but you're just settled, and there's such
a peace. Yes.
When you know that you are doing what he's called you to do. I mean, I'm retired and I'm a YouTuber. One of the guys in church came up to me, and he was introduced me to some friends, and he said, now this is Deborah, now she is an influencer. And I said, I'm 65, I'm retired, and I'm a YouTuber. Who would have ever thought that? But I do love it, and I'm only doing it because
people need to hear these stories.
People need to hear these stories, and I have the ability to talk and ask questions. And I like people. I like listening to people. And I love details and I love stories.
Amazing. You'd probably be a great counselor.
Oh, well, I think I'm past. Well, I don't know. Who knows, right?
You never know. Never say never.
Okay, I won't say never. Okay, so we're just, goodness, we're almost
another
at 30
minutes.
Okay, so let's wrap it up and just speak to the people, and we'll wrap it up, and I'll do the salvation call.
Yeah, same thing I kind of said in part one. Just allow the Lord to infiltrate your hearts and your minds and be transformed by the Spirit. A lot of times we tend to go through life and try to do it on our own, and we can't. We can't. That's why we have the Lord, and that's why he sent the counselor, the Holy Spirit, the comforter, to help us through this walk of life, and this Christian walk. It's not always easy, but it's doable. It's doable, and once, as Deborah said, once you are doing it and you know you're doing what the Lord has called you to, there's just such a overwhelming peace that you can live with knowing that you are good and you're in God's hands and He's got your back. So.
Yes. And He can take a mess and make it a message. I love that. And a test and a testimony.
Yep.
Yes. And we all have a mess. We've all at some point in our life experienced a mess.
Yes.
And we've all been tested. So turn the bad into good.
Yes.
So I'm going to lead you in a salvation message or
salvation
prayer. So Father, I don't know who's listening, but if you don't know Jesus, now is the time. It's always a good time, but now's the perfect time. And it's so easy. You just say, Dear Jesus, I'm a sinner. I have messed up. I am a hot mess. And I just want you to come in and be Lord of my life. Forgive me of my sins.
Amen.
And be Lord. And He will do that. It's just that easy.
Yes.
So bless you all for listening. Are we good?
We are
Anything
good.
else? This has been...
I love you. Deborah loves
you.
Jesus loves you.
And by the way, like and then share.
Yes.
And subscribe.
Yes.
I post every week, every Monday typically, with a new story. So if you subscribe, you get notified.
Can I put a shameless plug in there?
A shameless, yes, please.
So if you want some marital tips, advice, things like that, me and my wife do have a vlog on Instagram.
I didn't know that.
We're not posting a lot on YouTube, which I should continue to do that. You can also find us on YouTube, but it's been a while since I posted a video on there. But it's called I Vow Forever. So you can find us on Instagram at I Vow Forever, or you can look us up on YouTube at I Vow Forever. And we have some stuff up there, and we're going to be continuing to post.
Did not know that. Good to know. All right, guys. Thank you so much. And we will see you next time. Have a blessed day.
Bye.
Bye.